Hello, everybody. Welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you in my basement in the great state of Kansas. Today I'm doing a special live stream. Let me adjust my camera here. I always like to get my poster in the background. Um, Doing a special live stream, counting down the top 10 favorite Beatles songs. And if you follow my channel, been talking a lot about the Beatles. I've been ranking, this is part of my series, ranking every single Beatles song. I believe there's 213 Beatles songs that I've ranked, and I started this almost 2 years ago. I feel like it's been at least a year and a half, if not more. I've been on this for a long time, trying to do, 4 or 5 songs a video. Still, it takes quite a long time trying to get through every song, but definitely was a fun passion project of mine that I always wanted to do this. The Beatles is by far my favorite band of all time, and I've been a big Beatles fan since I was about 10 years old, and I'm 40 years old now. So this is coming from 30 years of being a diehard Beatles fan and listening to this music a million times over, listening to all these songs and albums, and reading all I can about the Beatles, watching every documentary I can find, listen to every podcast. It's just a lifelong passion, just studying about the Beatles and learning as much as I can about them, and just absolutely loving their music. And one of the things I want to do on the channel, of course, I started this channel 2 years ago. Obviously, I knew I was going to want to do a lot of stuff with the Beatles, as there's a lot of people that love the Beatles. So there's a lot of Beatles channels out there, but definitely I cannot do my channel without talking about the Beatles. It's just too big of a importance in my life. I mean, when I think about the things I love to talk about the most, I love talking about movies, of course. I love talking about music in general, but the Beatles is the highest probably of everything I love to talk about. I love talking about football, basketball, religion, politics, whatever. But the Beatles has always been uh, one of my favorite subjects to talk about. Anyway, so we're getting to now my top 10. So again, I thought I should do a live stream, do my top 10, get it all done, and I'll be done with this project I've been working on for quite a long time. So quite a lot of research has been going through, preparing for these songs. And of course, most of the research has already been done because I've been studying songs for a long time. But just really trying to analyze why I love them so much is. But yeah, I've been putting some work in and doing a lot of these. So hopefully you enjoy hearing my thoughts on these top 10 songs. Hopefully they're 10 songs that you enjoy as well. And anybody watching this, I have don't have anybody watching me right now live, but anybody watching this afterwards, definitely love to hear your thoughts on your top 10 Beatles songs, or what do you think about these Beatles songs I'm about to talk about. Anyway, so with that introduction, let's get to number 10. Number 10, 10th favorite song of the Beatles. And this is a huge one. This is a song, in fact, that is probably number one on a lot of people's lists. I've seen a lot of lists where this is number one, and I don't understand. And that's called "A Day in the Life." This is a song that closes the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album. It's, of course, a Lennon McCartney song, uh, mostly John, but then some Paul. So it really is a collaboration between John and Paul, because Paul has a whole bit in the song, kind of in the middle, just a little bit that kind of comes out of nowhere, and then it's gone. Anyways, it's kind of interesting. That's what's so interesting about the song. The way it's arranged is very different. Um, but yeah, you start off with John singing about, I read the news today, oh boy, about a man who, I think he talks first about he talks about a man in a car who blew his mind out in the car or something like that, and didn't notice the lights had changed. And this comes from John just reading the newspaper. That's what's so cool about the song, is John kind of coming up with articles from the newspaper and then writing them in a song. And the first one is about a guy who killed himself, I think, or got shot in a car. Or they're talking about probably JFK, in fact, maybe, if I remember right, getting shot in a car. Maybe not JFK, but he's talking about someone who's getting killed in a car, and he turns it into that first verse. Um, Anyways, but it's just, I don't know. I love John's vocal. The melody is so beautiful. I love the acoustic guitar coming in. Or bum 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 bum, and then it goes right into the acoustic guitar. And I read the news today. Oh, so good. I love the intro and great vocals by John, of course, and just a great melody. In fact, I just love John's the verses on the songs. What really makes the song for me, actually, I just love John's performance here. But then you get to he saw a film today about a man who won the war, or something like that, which seems to be referencing John was in a movie called How I Won the War, which was a Richard Lester movie, which I haven't seen. I've seen clips of it, and I heard it's not a particularly good movie, but there's a lot of fourth wall breaking. John in the movie plays one of the characters, fairly major character, I think, in the movie, and he does a lot of fourth wall breaking when he looks at the camera and talks to the camera. And I know there's like one really eerie scene where he talking to the camera about how he knows he's going to die someday, like being shot or something like that. And it's like, wow, he really, it's crazy seeing that scene and just being like, that will happen one day. He will get shot. I mean, a decade more, later after that movie, but still, it's like, oh man, can't believe he said that. But anyway, so that's what it's kind of referencing there. And then he talks about like I think the last verse talks about uh, how many holes will fill. Uh, what was it? There's enough holes to fill Albert Hall or something like that. And holes are referring to potholes. So he's reading a part of the newspaper about there's a pothole problem, I think, and there's enough potholes to fill the Albert Hall or something like that. Anyways, so that's where he comes with all these ideas is from the newspaper. So somehow it's just beautifully put together. And then what really makes the song so interesting is that after he does like the first two verses, and then he goes into this. They go into this orchestra buildup and and it gets louder and louder and louder. It's incredible crescendo, so loud you're like, holy cow, how loud is this going to get? And then you hear like a morning alarm, and all of a sudden it goes into this whole completely different song with Paul singing about waking up out of bed, put a come through my head, went downstairs to have a smoke, woke up into a dream, whatever, and trying to catch the bus, and then all this. And it's interesting middle part, and I think it was Paul wrote like the song, but it was unfinished, and so they decided to throw it into this John song, and I think just to experiment, because they're definitely experimenting. I mean, Sergeant Pepper's was a very experimental album, I would say. Definitely their psychedelic album, which is all about experimentation. But so it was an interesting experiment. I don't like the Paul part, I have to admit, as much as the John stuff. The John stuff is really the great stuff of the song. Paul's, it's okay. It definitely makes it unique. But I love when it goes from Paul back to John, and he does those he does those ahs, and then he goes right back bum 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 bum, and he goes right back into the verse. Oh, such a good transition. And I love John's, when he transitions into the last orchestra part, I love to turn you on. I love that, how the voice kind of shakes, and how they go right into the last part where it's another crescendo of the orchestra, and it goes, and then bum, that hits that last note. Oh, such a great ending to the song and such a great closer to the album, Sergeant Pepper's, and such an epic kind of song. It had to be my top 10. Just an incredibly written and produced song, and I love all the experimentation of putting the orchestra in there and doing that crescendo. It's so unique. But yeah, number 10, A Day in the Life. All right, going right to number nine. Number nine, number nine uh, on my list is While My Guitar Gently Weeps, which is a George Harrison song off of the White Album. It's my favorite song off the White Album. It's an absolutely amazing song. One of my favorite George Harrison songs. I actually have two more George Harrison songs in front of this. So it's my third favorite George Harrison song with the Beatles. And it's an interesting song where Harrison, he kind of came up with this idea that he was going to open a book, and he was going to open a book to a random page and kind of pick out a word, I guess. I don't know how he picked out the word. He picks out a word from that random page and then write a song around it. So it's like this kind of experimentation of like trying to write a random song over something, and like the idea that maybe there's no accidents or something like that. Hey, Mike, handsome man. Thank you, thank you. Yes, yes, thank you. Talking about my favorite subject, the Beatles, which I know you're not as in tuned in, Mike, but I appreciate you saying hi. Um, I mean, come on, the Beatles, the greatest band to come out of England. That's your country, Mike. But yeah, so yeah, it's kind of this interesting idea of how to write a song kind of randomly, but yet it's almost this idea that there's almost no accidents, that everything has a purpose, I think, or something. I don't know. I think it was something to do with his Hindu religion. Anyway, so he opens the book and points to a word in the book, and the word he points to is gently weeps. And so then he's like, okay, how can I write a book out of gently weeps? All right, my sister Abby's here, trying to guess your number one song, but can't decide if it'll be Yesterday or Hey Jude. Well, yeah, those are two absolutely amazing songs, and yeah, you might have got it. But my sister Abby in here, she's the one that got me into the Beatles when I was like 10 years old. And I think Abby was 13. My sister Abby, she, uh, I don't know, she came home and she was just this big Beatles fan all of a sudden. Her and her like best friend, they came home and they were just listening to Beatles, and I was like, knew I think maybe I heard about the Beatles, but I didn't know any of their music. And then when my sister started listening to them, I started listening to them, and I just fell in love with the Beatles at that point, and just never stopped. Of course, never grew out of it. um, Anyway, so thanks to Abby and my dad actually too, really got me into the Beatles. Um, anyway, so yeah, so he picked out this Gently Weeps, and then he came up with this idea of While My Guitar Gently Weeps. He puts that in there. What's such a great title. It's one of my favorite titles of a song. Um, I think it's gonna be Hey Jude. Okay, that's a good pick. Good pick. Um, anyway, so he writes a song and writes one of the most incredible songs just off of the idea of um, Gently Weeps, which is such a cool idea. And he writes one of the greatest songs of all time, in my opinion. But man, it's such a great. The guitar is so amazing on here. That beginning with the piano, and then goes right into that guitar. Oh, such a great intro. There's even an acoustic guitar in the background there, and the drums come in right when he goes right to the first verse. And actually, some really good lines about like I'm here like just I don't have the lyrics in front of me, but there's some great lyrics in this song. And it ends with While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and then it goes into that guitar and goes right into that really cool guitar licks and all that. Drumming's great. And just that bum bum bum, just that backing is so good. I can't do justice just just talking about it, but um, I should have the lyrics in front of me because there's some good stuff there. But uh, one of the most notable things about the song is that for some reason George he wasn't confident enough to do the guitar solo in front of the other Beatles for some reason in the studio, or that. And of course, there's a time when the Beatles. This is the last album, or not the last album, but this is the album where the Beatles are starting to trying to drift apart, anyways, and there's a lot of infighting and all that. And so then uh, he asked his good friend Eric Clapton to come into the studio and do the guitar solo. So this is the first time that a non-Beatle played on a Beatle record, I believe. Basically, I might be not totally right about that. I mean, there's obviously I'm not totally right about that because there's been some like at the very beginning they had a drummer other than Ringo actually play on I think Let Me Do. But anyways, but this is the first like major artists that they asked on to play a part on play a major part. I mean, playing the amazing guitar solo on a big song of theirs on their album. So that was a pretty significant thing. And bringing Eric Clapton in, who's one of the greatest guitar players of all time. So I mean, man, that's pretty amazing. George is a great guitar player, but bringing in Eric Clapton, it's like wow, to substitute for you, basically. And there's something about when anytime they bring in a guest, the Beatles seem to get along better. They seem to not want to fight in front of the guests. So That's kind of part of it. I think George wanted to bring Eric Clapton in to kind of, ease tensions and all that. They do this, of course, later with Billy Preston, kind of same thing where he comes in and everything seems to work better that way. But yeah, so Eric Clapton's heck guitar solo, absolutely amazing, and they're one of the best of all time, I think, with the Beatles. But yeah, what more can I say? Amazing song off the White Album. All right, Mike, biggest Beatles fan is Adam from the UK. Why isn't he here? I don't know. I wish he was here. I think you enjoy this. um, in fact, Adam is doing a top 10 Beatles songs Sunday. So definitely check in on Adam's What the Gym channel and see what his top 10 is compared to mine. All right. So number 8 on my top 10 songs, my favorite rock song from the Beatles. Absolutely love the song. And this is Come Together. This is the opening song for Abbey Road. It's a Lennon McCartney song, though it seems more of a John song. Of course, he lead sings it and everything. And his kind of song, because it's a little dark in a way. It's kind of a dark song in some senses. It's a weird song. Lyrically, it's one of the weirdest songs that he's written. But John actually first started the song out as a campaign for a politician named Timothy Leary, which I've heard that name. I forget who Timothy Leary is, but I know that's somebody that associated with John, anyways. And John was, I guess, started off as a campaign, but didn't really end that way, I would say, because the whole song "Come Together" right now over me, and the way the song goes. I mean, there's stuff that there goes old flat top. He goes, he's so. What's the lyrics? He's so thin or something. You can hardly see, and it sounds like this. It sounds like it's describing somebody who's like deteriorating physically in front of them, like someone who's dying, And "Come Together" over me almost sounds like a guy's dying or he's at a funeral or something like that, and people gathering for the funeral. That's what it sounds like. It's an interesting, very interesting song lyrically. Uh, one and one is three. Got to be good looking because he's too hard to see or something like that. It's good stuff though. I do enjoy singing along with the song for sure. But what makes the song so great though is that bass, the boom boom da 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 boom boom da da boom da 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 boom da da. Oh, the bass is so amazing. Like that was really. This is definitely one of my favorite songs with the bass, and it's just so perfect and just that combined with the drums. I say the bass and the drums is the champion of the song, which usually you would. And John's singing is amazing, great vocals. There's some good guitar in here as well. But man, it's that bass and that drums because Ringo, some of his best drumming. And I think actually Paul came up with the drumming. From what I remember, Paul was the one who went to Ringo and said, "This is here's my idea of I think because I've heard Ringo say this before that Paul was one that kind of came up with the idea of he does like this, you know, run of fills from one drum snare or whatever to the other bass or snares or whatever. And so it has this really cool effect of and then I think it ends with some cymbals or something like that. And it goes throughout with that bass line and just those two items, just like I said, it's one of those songs that I can't help but rock to when I hear. This is a song that I've always liked, but I fell in love with like the last couple of years. When I hear the song, I just can't help but like bang my head. It's one of those songs where I can't go, I have to move my head because it just rocks so hard. Especially when you get, like I said, when you get that bass line, like in between, kind of transitioning, and you get that boom, 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 and then right after he hits that, the drum comes down. And it's like, oh man, when that drum hits after that bass line, it's just pure gold. I mean, it's just perfect. It's what makes the song so amazing on its own, and why I absolutely just love the song. It's a great opener for Abbey Road. So, I mean, really set that off, that record rocking right away with that song. So amazing. And it's interesting that I know my sister just mentioned he was hard to see was a clue that Paul is dead. Yeah, because they came with this idea that Paul was dead, and there was this big conspiracy theory that Paul had died, and they replaced him with somebody else, and all this. And this is definitely a song they point to, meaning John was secretly writing about Paul dying, and that's why he's describing this person who, yeah, seems to be deteriorating. Like I say, he's too hard to see. Um, and there's some other interesting lyrics in there. Um, Anyways, but yeah, obviously, I don't think Paul died. I think like that was all just a crazy conspiracy theory that they came together. But it definitely is a eerie song. And maybe one of those eerie parts is there's this when they do that bass line boom, dear. There's some parts where John is saying "shoot me, shoot me, and you're like, oh, why did John have to say "shoot me"? Like, oh, that was the worst words for him to say. We had no idea in 1969, of course, that 11 years later he would get shot and die. So just crazy things that happen. And there's all things like playing something backwards and it says Paul is dead, and it's all these ideas of dead, of course. But then, of course, John, it would come to true, unfortunately. All right, going from "Come Together" to one of the happiest songs, maybe the happiest song ever written, and another great song off the Abbey Road album. And this is "Here Comes the Sun" at number 7 on my list. Another great George Harrison song. I mean, it's funny, George Harrison, Lennon McCartney ruled, as far as writing the great songs of the Beatles. But I have 3 George Harrison songs in my top 10. I mean, Harrison towards the end was writing songs as good or better than what Lennon McCartney were writing. I mean, he was on fire there, especially from Revolver to the end. I mean, he was writing so many good stuff. And Abbey Roads is probably his best album, George Harrison. I mean, he wrote 2 absolutely amazing songs. And one of them is "Here Comes the Sun," which actually opens the second side. So it's kind of cool. "Come Together" opens the A side on Abbey Roads. And then when you turn the record over to the B side, it starts with "Here Comes the Sun," which is such a great contrast to "Come Together." Like I said, "Come Together" is kind of this dark, song about that. Well, "Here Comes the Sun" is about this, the joy of, being out in the sun, kind of, and talking about, going through. It almost seems like an analogy of going through hard times. It's talking about going through this long, cold winter, and then it's like this transition from winter to summer. It's kind of almost a hopeful song of transitioning from maybe going through hard times to maybe hope for the future. I don't know. That's what I may be reading too much into it. That's why I always like the song. I feel like the song's always played to be uplifting. It's a song that I don't know if George really meant to be that way, but it's definitely one of the great songs that could be an uplifting song. Like I said, it's just a song that I can't help but smile when I listen to it, and it does make you put you in a good mood when you hear the song. If you're in a bad mood or anything, you hear the song, it just lifts you up right away. And that's one of the reasons why I just absolutely love this song. It's kind of like I said the same thing about Penny Lane. I feel like Penny Lane, "Here Comes the Sun," man, those songs they just bring so much joy to me when I hear them. But yeah, so George really he wrote the song because this was, of course, Abbey Road 1969. This was the last album that they recorded. The Beatles obviously were breaking up, and there was a lot of infighting, especially with the managers, because Brian Epstein, of course, had passed away a couple of years before, maybe, or a year before. And they're looking for a new manager, and they're fighting on who to manage them. And they also started this new Apple company, which was having trouble as well. And they're in business meetings and stuff like this. And plus, George always at this point was starting to have some trouble because he was, kind of a lot of resentment of like not being able to get his songs on the records because Lennon McCartney, got a bunch of songs on every record, and Harrison was kind of pushed back, and he wasn't getting much help. Like Lennon McCartney weren't helping. He felt anyways that Lennon and McCartney weren't helping him with his songwriting and all this, So there's some resentment there, I think, and so there's a lot of stress going on at that point. And so George would go hang out with his friend Eric Clapton. Anyways, they were really good friends, like I said, on the While My Guitar Gently Weeps song. And he'd be sitting outside, and he just kind of envied, I think, Eric Clapton at the point, because I think Eric Clapton was, I don't know that he was with the band. He was with Cream. Uh, I don't know if he's still with Cream at this point. I think he might have left Cream or something, but he just kind of envied Eric Clapton because Eric Clapton wasn't part of a band that was in having all the stress and infighting, and he was just. In fact, I think he would, when he was supposed to go to a meeting, he would just go hang out with Eric Clapton, and he'd be sitting outside, with Eric, and the sun would be coming up, and or the sun would be out there, and he just kind of found himself just enjoying just sitting outside in the sun and being away from all the stresses of the job, I guess, of this company that they're running. And I don't know, so I think that's where he kind of came up with. He kind of saw he kind of I don't know, thought about sitting outside in the sun, and just the joy it was just being outside and not be inside meetings and stuff. And then he quickly wrote down this song anyways, kind of about that feeling of being out in the sun, and how it's much better, and kind of about like I said, he's going through some hardship with all the Beatles and all that, and definitely was ready to break apart, and start his own solo career. But yeah, that's where it comes. And yeah, it's a beautiful song. Love the acoustic guitar playing. The acoustic guitar playing is absolutely amazing on this song. I mean, it's the best of George Harrison in my opinion, or some of my best. There's some other great stuff like I mentioned, but just love his acoustic guitar playing on here, and how that song begins. Here comes the sun, do 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 do. Here comes the sun, and I say it's all right. Oh, so good, that beginning with that guitar, and it's such a hard guitar. Like, I've tried playing that song on guitar, and I can't do it. I don't know. It's the way he plays it. I don't have the skills to play that song. But yeah, what more to say? Absolutely amazing song. Here comes the sun, at number 7 on my list. Number 6 on my list. This is a song that you guys mentioned. It's not my number 1. It's my number 6, but it's an absolutely amazing song, and that is "Hey Jude" at number 6. So not number 1 like Abby and Mike had predicted, but man, it's an amazing song. I mean, it could be a number 1. It's a single that came out in 1968. It's a Lennon McCartney song. Obviously, it's a Paul McCartney written song, and it went number 1 in 1968 as a single. And wish they would have put it on the White Album. Take out Revolution Number 9, put this song in. White Album may be my favorite album of all time if they did that. I mean, it's already a great album. But yeah, and this was a song that was, I think, first premiered on TV. I forget what show, on some show that they did in Great Britain, I believe. And they, I don't know, they played it live, maybe on the show, I guess, and they premiered it on TV. And so, because they weren't touring anymore, so the only way they can promote their songs is they have to go on TV, and either make a music video and premiere it on TV, or play it live like this song. And it's so great, the video is so great, watching that close up of Paul as he starts that piano, and "Hey Jude, do, 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 don't make," oh, so great, such a great opener. Piano is absolutely beautiful. I think, I love the song. I love Paul McCartney's piano playing. As you see, I have a couple songs here, which is kind of his piano songs. I would say his piano ballads, and his piano playing is just so amazing. And of course, I get the I think the greatest concert experience I've ever had. And Abby is in the chat. I went to see Paul McCartney with my sister Abby and her husband Doug, and in Wichita back in 2017, I think it was. And I think he closes with this song. I want to say it's like maybe his closer. But it was the most amazing experience I've ever had in a concert, and one I'll cherish for the rest of my life is hearing Paul sing "Hey Jude" and going through that song. Because I mean, obviously, like I said, the piano's great. The verses are amazing. Take a song and make it better. Such a great line. Let him. Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, it was such an awesome experience. Um, uh, don't let them get in your skin, and then you can begin to make it better. I don't know. It's a song about, yeah, somebody, again. It's another song about someone going through hard times, and it's a song about trying to uplift that person and trying to say, you're sad, but it'll get better, hang in there kind of song. So it's got that kind of feel to it, a lot like Here Comes the Sun. I mean, so I love that a lot. I love that about it. But Paul's vocals absolutely amazing, uh, so good. Um, but you get through the whole song, which is absolutely amazing, and then you get to the end. All of a sudden, you get to this na 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 na. Hey Jude, you get that part, and that's like 3 minutes long. Like it's a 7 minute song. It's like in 3 minutes of it or something. That's just the na na nas, which is just a great song. I love the crescendo up to that. Where you get into the where you transition from the kind of the main song to the na na nas, like kind of the ending of that song, which is like 3 minutes long. Um, and Paul just going off vocally, hey, Jude, 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 yeah, na, 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 na. So good, and it's just so crazy how great that is. And he's just saying na 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 na, hey Jude, and them singing together with Paul, just going off, on these vocal riffs, and uh, it makes it the greatest sing along song of all time, bar none. And like I said, why I love this, it was my favorite experience, seeing Paul McCartney live, and greatest concert experience because it's so awesome when he gets to those na na nas, and you're in this crowd of how many thousand people in the concert, and we're all singing the na na nas together, and just the whole arena, whatever the Interest Bank Arena that we were in, is filled with everybody singing na 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 na, hey Jude, and singing that with Paul. And then Paul he does this thing. I've seen him, he does this everywhere, but what makes it so great is then he'll say, all right, now just the ladies sing. And then, so just the ladies will sing the na, 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 na. And then, all right, now the fellas, or something like that. The fellas sing it. And then all the guys were singing na, na, and I'm singing on top of my lungs, of course. So great. We're singing na, na, na. And then everybody together, na, 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 na. Anyways, and it's just us, like the band's, I don't think the band's playing. I think it's just us like singing a cappella. And I mean, I can't tell you how great it is, like to sing that last part, with a group, in front of Paul McCartney, the guy who wrote the song. It's just amazing. Anyways, but yeah, love that about the song. Um, Also, I should say about the song, I guess, give a little history behind it. I wrote it for Julian Lennon, which is John Lennon's son, first son. And so it's first going to be Hey Jules, I think, or something like that. But then he's changed to Hey Jude, I guess, sounded a little bit better. But Julian, it's about Julian, anyways. And because John and Cynthia were going through a divorce because John was cheating on her with Yoko Ono, and she caught him, and so they're going through a divorce. And obviously, it's really tough on the kids when you go through a divorce. So Paul, I think, was feeling very bad for Julian, having to go through his divorce. So and Paul and Julian, there's a lot of pictures of Paul, hanging out with Julian, playing with him, all this stuff. So Paul definitely like, really took on Julian during this time, and, really kind of, help him out during a tough time. So it's really kind of cool, when you see that. And the fact that Paul cared so much that he wrote this whole song about Julian and, going through this hardship, that's a really cool thing about Paul, I thought. Really nice of him to do this, and write this, song to uplift somebody, and then comes one of the greatest songs ever written, and one of the most played songs and most well-known songs for the Beatles, and coming all from just trying to help this kid going through a divorce, parents' divorce, so that's where that kind of comes through, um, yeah. So yeah, absolutely amazing song, Hey Jude, and number 6 on my list. Now we get to that to another number 5, another absolutely amazing Paul McCartney piano ballad, and this is "The Long and Winding Road" at number 5 on my list. Which maybe that might seem really high. Like I've seen some people say they hate "The Long and Winding Road." I've had some people who do rankings that will rank it. I've seen someone who ranked it last, ranked it the very last, their least favorite. I've heard someone say that's the least favorite Beatles song, and I've heard a lot of people put it really low on the list. And I think the reason is because people don't like all the extra. That's because Phil Spector came in and he put in the whole orchestra thing, and so it's really heavy on the orchestra on the song, and which was originally, I think Paul was originally planning on having the orchestra with it. So I know Paul, I think, was not happy with the song the way it turned out, And of course, you can hear the original, I guess, the way Paul had it in the "Let It Be Naked" album that he came out with, I think, and they took out the orchestra or something. Anyways, and all that stuff. But so a lot of people I know, it's a song that some people love to hate for some reason because of that. But I absolutely love the song, and I love the orchestra. I love when they throw orchestra music. Anytime you throw orchestra, beautiful orchestra music into a song, I usually love it. And so I'm all down for the orchestra music. I think it's some of the best parts of the song. So I don't get all that hate. I think it's absolutely beautiful song. I mean, first off, again, it's off the Libby album. Like I said, McCartney really wrote the song. It's a Lynn McCartney song, and Paul wrote it because at this time he was Libby, the second last album that they recorded, but last album that came out. But this time the Beatles were breaking apart, like I said, and Paul, I believe, just married Linda at this time, and he had of course, he lived in London, but he also had a house in Scotland, which you hear a lot about. He loved it was a kind of a house away from everybody, so he loved, and it's kind of a rundown. I think it was a rundown, like, stone house that he had in Scotland, but he loved being out there and being out on the farm, and he would be out doing, like, yard work, and working with the sheep and whatever. He had kind of like a little farm out there in Scotland. Anyway, so when he's out there driving around, he saw a road that was really long and winding, and he kind of got this idea for the song, "Long Winding Road," from "Come Across This Road," anyways. And it seems to me to be an analogy for, again, kind of hardship. Life is not easy. It's not straight. Life is winding. You get bad stuff happen to you, good stuff happen to you. I feel like that's the analogy for the song, is like kind of about, it's an analogy for life. Life is hard, like all these other songs I'm talking about, you know songs about uplifting you. So again, it's another kind of uplifting song through hardship, I guess. And I guess I really enjoyed that. I'm finding myself now thinking about it. I do love these kind of songs, I guess. um, Feeling some kind of hope or whatever through this, because anyways, but he's talking about, you know this winding road, and then and this winding road leads me to you, which is kind of, um, I am at number 5, Nick, number 5, the long and winding road on my list. So getting a little over halfway through my top 10 here. um, but yeah, and I love that, still the road leads me to you, which is the nice thing of, going through going through the hardships of every day, and then getting to be with, you talking about Linda, is definitely like the makes it all better. Anyway, so I just love kind of the idea behind the writing of the song. But it's just a beautiful, beautiful song. Oh, that piano is so good. The bum 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 when he does that, still it leads me back, bum 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 bum, to that long winding road. Oh, it's so great. Dun, 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 dun. And then there's this part where it's just the orchestra. Oh, love that part when the orchestra comes in, and it's just, I have it number 5 because it's just one of the most beautiful songs ever written. And every time I hear it, I just go, oh, I get lost and just think about, just get lost in the music, and just like, oh, just marvel in the beauty of the song. My favorite Beatles song is "Within You Without You," Sgt. Pepper album. Wow, that was one of my least favorite songs of all time. That was way down my list. That's like in the 200s. Yeah, I hate that song, "Within You Without You," and it's mostly because it's like I don't really like the sitar Indian music um, thrown in there. But I know a lot of people love that song. I've heard a lot of people say it's one of their favorite off the album. It's like it's my least favorite off that album, "Within You Without You." That's interesting. That's your favorite song. Classic song from "Let It Be," "Long Way Road." Yeah, really classic song. Like I say, so many great piano, ballads from Paul. "Hey Jude," "Long Winding Road." All right, now we're in my top 5. Your dad hates that song. Okay. um, Now we're getting to number 4. Number 4 favorite Beatles song. This is my favorite George Harrison song of all time. Probably the best love song, one of the best love songs ever written, and that is the song "Something." which comes off Abbey Road. It's actually the second song, I think, right after Come Together. So it's amazing when you get to Come Together. It's a great rock song, and then you get to something amazing love kind of, I don't know what to call it, love ballad or whatever, um, from George, which I don't think George I think says that he didn't really have anybody specific in mind, but you would think he should have had his wife in mind when he wrote the song, because it's, and it's so great. Something the way you move attracts me like no other lover. I mean, oh, such a great lyric. Um, Something, it's a song about something about that person that you love makes you love them. There's something about them. It's such a great idea for a song, and so beautifully written by George. Again, like I said, at this point, Abbey Road, the very last album, George is just writing some of the best music of the Beatles, which is kind of interesting that he really had caught up with Lennon McCartney as far as songwriting. It's just he started off slow, I think, with what's it called? Uh, what's it called? Don't Bother Me, which came off of with they came up with Beatles, I think, his first song solo. Definitely went a long ways from Don't Bother Me to something. I mean, absolutely amazing. um, this was the first A side single that George had. George's songs never was the A side on a single until we get to something, anyways, and that's how how much they thought of it. I think when he, in fact, I think you hear on the Get Back sessions, I think he's working on this song, and I think they even worked on it together a little bit when they were doing Abbey Roads or something like that. I mean, yeah, they're doing the Let It Be, sorry, the Let It Be sessions, the Get Back sessions, whatever that would be, Let It Be, and they're working on songs. I think you hear a little bit of him coming up with something and kind of working through that song. Anyways, and then eventually comes out on the last album, Abbey Road. But it was one of the songs that he brought to the Beatles, the rest of the other Beatles, and they definitely heard it and they were like, "Wow, this song's amazing! Like, we need to put this on the A side." And they've never done that before to this point, which is kind of crazy because "Here Comes the Sun" should have been like a side single. "While My Guitar Gently Weeps" should have been a side single. I even would, take like, I think even "Taxman" or um, uh, or "I Need You." I think any of those songs could have been an A side single. They're so good, from George Harrison. But it's great that he finally got one with something, uh, which I believe, the number one single in the United States, and it's the greatest single I think of all time because you had something on the A side and Come Together on the B side, and I already have both of them are in my top 10 favorite songs of all time. So that's to me, in my opinion, the greatest A side or greatest single of all time. I mean, two absolutely amazing songs, something come together on the same single. And it's definitely like maybe the one of the most covered songs that the Beatles ever did. Like a lot of other people, I think, have covered the song. Famously, Frank Sinatra covered the song "Something" and said that this is like the best love song that Lennon McCartney ever wrote. Not knowing that actually George Harrison wrote the song, not Lennon McCartney. But even Frank Sinatra loved the song and did a really good rendition of it. Um, anyway, so that was great for George. But yeah, it's just a beautiful song, and I would even say um, this is my favorite one, maybe my favorite guitar of a Beatles song, or how I would say it, my probably my favorite guitar solo from the Beatles, which is maybe weird because it's not a fast-paced song. It's very slow, but I love the guitar on the song, the way it sounds. Um, how it begins and everything, and that guitar solo. Oh, I love that guitar solo. It's slow, but it's beautiful, like just perfect for the song. Throughout. But yeah, yeah, just a beautiful love song from George, and yeah, wonderfully sang everything. It's just such a great song. And number four is "Something." Now I get to my top three favorite songs from the Beatles. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying this. My thoughts on this and agree somewhat with my list. At number three, we have a song called "In My Life," which comes off the Rubber Soul album. It's my favorite song off of Rubber Soul, obviously, because it's number three on my list. This is a Lennon McCartney song. It's mostly John singing, or John's lead sings, and mostly him writing the song off of Rubber Soul. And it's such another beautiful song, kind of a reminiscing song about the past. And that's what I love about the song. I think when I hear it, especially at age 40, I definitely constantly thinking about my childhood, and I have a lot of nostalgia, and reminiscing about, my times, especially because it's been like over 20 years since I graduated from high school. So I think a lot about my friends in high school that I never talk to anymore, or I never see. It's been like, 20 years that I've seen some of my friends from high school. And I often, hear the song and just think about those days, go, man, 'cause the song really talks about, about all those friends, lovers that went before. I often stop and think about them in my life. I love you more. I mean, such a great line. And like I said, it's so true. When you get older, especially, you definitely think about, uh, you know, all those past friends and relationships that you had and all those moments, and how cherished they are. And, but then you have to live in the now, and he says, but I love you more. Um, um, and I have my wife, so obviously I love my wife, and that's the most important thing to me. But yet I still think about the past as well. And so yeah, it's just a beautifully one of the best written songs by. Actually, I would say it's my favorite written song by John. I think, and this is Rubber Soul. So we're talking about 1965. So they're 2 years into being the best band in the world at this point, and they still got some time left, before they break up. And he's so young too at this point. I think he's in his 20s. I'm sure he's like in his mid 20s, and he's writing this song about reminiscing past and all this. And it's like, wow, how can you write such a great song about thinking about the past when you're at 25 or whatever you are? You might be younger. I don't know. Amazing writing from John at that age. It's just amazing. Like I couldn't do anything like that when I was in my 20s. I couldn't think that that wise, that retrospective like that. But that's what makes John one of the greatest of all time, of course. But I really love the song. Is that guitar is so good. The um, bum 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 bum. Uh, so good. Every time I hear that, just it's just, yeah, again, just gold. When I hear that guitar intro coming into the, and then the harmonies are just absolutely amazing. It goes into that. There are places I remember. The harmonies just spot on, and just a beautiful melody. And then you got that really cool George Martin plays the like harpsichord or something like that, and they speed it up to kind of have this little harpsichord solo in there. Much different than anything else. Usually have a guitar solo or something in there, but that little cool little harpsichord solo that George Martin puts in there, really cool. And it goes back into that verse. And then I love the end because he puts a little bit more into that ending, where in my life he hits his really good high note, and then I love you more, like how he really slows down that last part, and then goes back to that guitar, bum 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 bum. It's like, oh man, it's just so beautiful, like almost leaves tears in your eyes. In fact, my favorite thing about that song is the anthology series, which I have on DVD. I love watching every once in a while. Great documentary on the Beatles, and I have like it's like 5 discs or 6 discs or something. And in the very first disc, and when they first start talking, they start interviewing the Beatles, start talking about being in the Beatles, and then they go, well, let's go back to the beginning, and they played "In My Life," and then they start showing like this montage of the Beatles when they were young and they first starting out, and they show, in fact, they show each Beatle getting older. They'll start with John, and they'll see him like in the 50s when he's first starting out with the Quarrymen, and you'll see a montage of him being with the Beatles in the early 60s and mid 60s, late 60s, and at the end he's got the long hair and the beard and the glasses. And so and you do it with each Beatle, so you really see them, what it was like for them from the teenage years to into 30 or whatever. And it's such a beautiful, it's the best montage I've ever seen in anything. And with that "In My Life," I remember the first time watching Anthology, and that part just really got me. Like I was like, oh, that was the most beautiful montage I've ever seen in my life. With that amazing, and that's when I was like, this is one of the greatest songs of all time in my life, because it plays over that montage of the Beatles, and it's like, oh man, so beautifully done. And still, when I hear that song, it's so beautiful. Anyways, Number three is In My Life. All right. Number two. All right, I got two songs left. I don't know if everybody's pay attention. What do you think? What do you think I have left? Um, well, number two, I have Let It Be, from the album Let It Be, obviously. And this is also the McCartney song. Obviously, it's more McCartney song. It's on the Let It Be album, which they eventually named the. So good they named the, because first it was, I think it was going to be called Get Back or something like that, but then they changed it to Let It Be. Um, and also came out as a single. It went number one in the U.S. and number two in the U.K. How it didn't go number one in the UK, I don't know, but at least it went number one in the US, anyways. And definitely, I mean, it's one of the great songs, not just Beatles, but of all time. It's one of my favorite. I love listening to the song. Again, it's just so beautiful, and it's just Paul. That piano is it's the best piano song of all time, I think. Just love his piano on the song. Bum 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 bum. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me. Ah, when you get to that, oh, so beautiful. Speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Bum 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 bum. Ah, it's like every time I hear that piano, it's like, oh, I just, you know, just lose it, um, and it's, of course, a song. It's another song, kind of an uplifting type song. Paul's song. He's singing about his mother. His mother's name was Mary, and so when he's talking about, uh, you know, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. So his mother, he had a dream about, because his mom died when he was young, I think, of cancer. Um, okay, thanks, Abby. Thanks for chiming in. Um, uh, so he's thinking about, his mom died when he was young, and it's obviously like the most painful moment in his life. And other than his wife also dying later in cancer, but at that point it was the most, yeah, it's the most tragic moment of his life. His mom dying when he was still a kid, and he had a dream about his mom uh, coming to him and saying "Let it be," and that's where he came up with the song from a dream, which is crazy, actually. How many great songs he's written just from dreams. It's like Paul McCartney writes better songs when he's dreaming than any of us could when we're awake. But but yeah, so he writes this whole song over, and I think it's about Let It Be. Of course, this is the end of the Beatles. Like I said, in fact, all these songs are from. Uh, Most of them are from the Abbey Road, Let It Be albums and White album. So this is, it's funny. My favorite Beatles songs were coming at this point when the Beatles were really starting to drift apart, and they're about to break up and all this. And somehow they've written some of the greatest songs of all time during this hardship. And like I said, a lot of these songs seem to be songs about hardship and getting over hardship and having hope and, being uplifting anyway. So maybe that's why, because they're going through hardships, they kind of came up with all these great, uplifting songs that absolutely are wonderful. I love them anyway, so that's why I got all these songs really high on my list, like this one, Let Be. But yeah, I think it was the time where he's getting a lot of stress over with the Beatles and all this, like I said, picking a manager and doing these business meetings and so this idea of his mom coming to him in a dream and saying "Let it be," is kind of like, don't worry about it, just you spend too much time, and I do that. I spend too much time worrying about things, and it ruins my life. And I should just let it be. Just you know, not worry about things so much. I think, and that's what those words mean to Paul, and that's why I get so much out of it. I think of the same thing. Like, yeah, I definitely need to stop worrying. Just let it be. And but yeah, so beautiful. It's almost like a gospel song. And if you've seen the movie Across the Universe, they sing the song as a gospel song over a funeral. It's beautiful. I love the rendition is really good as well in that movie Across the Universe. But definitely my favorite version is Paul McCartney singing here. I mean, you can't beat what he does here, and of course, he puts so much passion into it because it's a very personal song to him. And there's this great moment. If you might not like what's his name, uh, late night talk show guy. He does these car karaoke, which I do love the car karaoke stuff that he does. But one of the greatest things he yeah you have to watch the one where he has Paul McCartney. He does car karaoke with Paul McCartney, and they're in Liverpool, and he's going to like their Paul's house and stuff like that, and and he's talking, telling stories about being a kid, and they're singing Beatles songs and stuff like that in the car, and they start singing "Let It Be," and the guy that does it, he starts crying because it's just it does give you emotional. It's a song that's very emotional when you think about it, and especially when it gets you through hard times. It's like one of the songs that, like a lot of these, that it's good when you're going through hard times to listen to the song. It can really get you through it. And I think that's what it does for a lot of people, and why it's my second favorite song, and I think a lot of people's favorite song. It's such an important song, I think, to all of us that have fallen in love with the Beatles, in my opinion. And it's very personal to Paul. I know every time Paul, I think even in his old age, still thinks about his mom, and this song really brings that up. And so I think it's even a very emotional song for Paul to go through, even though he sings it. And I heard him sing this live, and it was amazing. Uh, yeah, never get tired of the song. Also, one of the great guitar solos. George comes in with this absolutely amazing guitar solo all of a sudden in the middle of the song, which doesn't seem like kind of song that you use a guitar solo in, but totally nails it on the guitar solo. And yeah, so good, so beautiful. Love the song. Let It Be at number two. All right, now we're down to number one, my favorite Beatles song of all time, and to be honest, my favorite song of all time. Like these top 10 are all like maybe my top 10 favorite songs of all time, at least in my top 20, if not. But this is definitely my favorite all time. And if you've paid attention to, oh yeah, there's a single version. You're right. I mean, there's a single version and then the album version. They're a little bit different. I forget. Um, but yeah, if you pay attention to my list, and maybe you'll say, "Huh, he hasn't talked about this song. Hopefully, this is number one or pretty high up." Well, my sister kind of guessed it as, as a possibility, and it is the song "Yesterday." "Yesterday" is my favorite Beatles song, my favorite song of all time. Loved this song since I was a kid. It became my favorite song probably since I was a teenager, and hasn't moved since I was a teenager. It's still a song I hear and just absolutely just get lost in. Like I said, with these other songs, and just really think about the lyrics. Are so good, and again, just a beautiful, beautiful song. It's the most. It was the number one single off the Help album. It's the first song that Paul really wrote on his own and played on his own. None of the other Beatles play on the song. Um, uh, it was a day in life. Yesterday's a million times better. Well, day in the life was number 10 on my list, Nick. So I do like a day in the life quite a bit. But yeah, yesterday's not my number one. Uh, it's hard to beat it. All these other songs are so good, but man, yesterday it's hard to beat that song for me. But yeah, McCartney wrote this, and it's just Paul McCartney and acoustic guitar and some orchestra music that George Martin, I believe, wrote the music. And Paul McCartney wasn't even sure he wanted. They never put orchestra music before. It was almost like the first single that any of the Beatles did, because all the Beatles did all these songs together. And so this was such a different song for them at the time. We Need the Help in 1965, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's Paul going solo. But I mean, it's a Beatles song, but at the same time, it's really a Paul McCartney like solo song, because it's really all him. He wrote it all, he plays it, and Martin said, kind of suggested maybe putting orchestra music in it, and Paul was like, I'm not sure, I want orchestra music in it. I don't want too sappy. But then George's like, well, let's just try some orchestra music, and then you tell me what you think. And so they did put some orchestra music in it, and then Paul's like, yeah, that sounds better actually. And so he agreed with George to put orchestra with it, and that's so I love that because orchestra music is so beautiful in the song, and that's what really makes the song, I think, even more beautiful than it already is. But I love the acoustic guitar playing. He has this very interesting bump. He plays this. I don't know how he does it. As a guitar player, it's an unusual picking pattern, where he like hits the. I think he's hitting the top notes with his thumb, and some people do this. I've never been into this type of picking pattern where you hit the top notes with your thumb, and then you strum the rest with your fingers. Very interesting way of doing it, um, but yeah, it's a song to me, and what I love the song is lyrically, it just really speaks to me. Um, the song says, "Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. Now it looks like they're here to stay. Oh, I believe in yesterday. Suddenly, my life is half what it used to be. There's a shadow hanging over me. Oh, I believe in yesterday." It's a song about, you know, being sad. It's kind of the song about you're kind of sad today, but you were happy yesterday, and you feel like, oh, you have all this troubles today, and you wish you can go back to yesterday when you weren't in trouble, when you didn't have all this, hardship and trouble in your life. And so it's something I think about all the time. Like when something bad happens to me, I always think about like, gosh, I feel so bad now, and I felt good yesterday, and I think, man, I long for yesterday when I was feeling happy, and today I'm feeling not happy. So it's such a great, beautiful written, and it really, the lyrics and the sound of the song and Paul's vocals, the passion, the emotion he has in his voice, I think, and really singing the song just gives you that. It's the perfect song for like, yeah, feeling those feelings of sadness after something happens to you. The lyrics just, you know, to me, it and Paul doesn't say exactly, I think, why it's written. It seems like there's different interpretations of maybe what it's about. I always took it as, to me, it always spoke to me as like after a breakup, like because I had times in junior high and high school and even beyond, of course. But I remember when I was 13, I had my first girlfriend, and we dated for like 3 months in seventh grade, and and it was special because the first girl I had to hold hands with, first girl I got to kiss. I got all these great feelings, emotions about all that. And then one day she broke up with me, and it just devastated me, broke my heart. I was just devastated for a while. It was the worst feeling I ever had in my life, and I'd have many of those moments in my life. But I remember that first time just being devastated by getting my heart broken. And I remember hearing yesterday and just crying when I heard the song, because I just thought about, gosh, I'm going through this breakup and it's just killing me. And and thinking back, man, I wish I could go back to when we were together and I was happy and I had a girlfriend, and now I'm single again and I'm miserable. And so it was at that moment that I just fell in love with the song, and just it spoke to me in a way that no other song has ever spoken to me. And still to this day, I think about that. When I hear the song, I think about that first breakup I had with a girlfriend, and just the feelings of misery that I had, and how listening to the song really, helped me through this, really helped me through all that. And really, because it really, I couldn't put down words better than what the song put of my feelings after a breakup. I said something wrong. I don't know. She wouldn't say. It's exactly what happens when you get broken up, because it seems like it never comes out of nowhere. You're thinking everything's going good. All of a sudden, your girlfriend's like, I don't want to be with you anymore. I'm tired of you. I want to go out with somebody else. That's kind of what it is. In junior high, it's very shallow. It's just, I want to move on, because you're just young and you know, and immature. And so, I had girlfriends that just break up with me because they just, I guess got bored with me and wanted to go with somebody else. And so they break up, go with somebody else. And you think, what did I do wrong? Did I say something? And you go through your whole history of your relationship, and you think, where was it that I went wrong, that I made this girl not like me anymore? And you just mull over it, and just, you know, which is maybe not a good thing, but that's what I always did. It was just mull over, like, what did I say wrong? And she never told me what I said wrong, so I'm still a mystery. It's still a mystery to me why all my girlfriends broke up with me for the most part. It's like, I don't know what I did. I always thought I was a good person, thought I was always a good boyfriend, thought I was always very loving and kindness, and did things for people. And like, what was it that I did wrong that would make this person not love me anymore? uh it's just a horrible feeling, that feeling of that. It kind of kills you. And I feel like I've always been like highly depressed ever since I was 13. I feel like I've been just in one great depression after great depression all through my life. And I feel like I don't think I was ever depressed until that moment I had my first heartbroken. And I still feel like, yeah, I still go through those feelings today, even, like, what went wrong with all stuff. Of course, now I'm married, so I don't have those feelings. I'm glad I'm in a relationship, and I don't have to, worry about that. But still, those are still moments in my life that still linger on, until you die, I think. uh, in some senses. I mean, I don't worry, or those things don't depress me anymore because those are in the past and I've moved on. But definitely, there's times where it just wouldn't go away. Those feelings of sadness and all that, and uh, yeah. But so I love those lyrics of what I say. I say something wrong. I don't know. She wouldn't say. Um, I forget now. Something. Now I long for yesterday. I don't know. Just very simple lyrics, but yet really pinpoint my feelings at those times in my life, and so that's why very kind of personal song to me, very emotional song to me when I hear it, and I think about that and go, yeah, he just totally nailed it. And I don't know if Paul wrote it that way, but somehow that's what it interpreted to me. Um, I've heard some say like it might be about his mom dying and going through that hardship and thinking about, yesterday, and did I say something wrong? Like, did I say something, before she died? Did I, you know, you always think about that before someone dies. Like, did we have a good interaction before they died? Did I say something bad before they died? So I don't know that could be part of what Paul was writing about, maybe about his mom dying. I don't think he said exactly. So it's an interesting song where it can be interpreted, I think, different ways. But that's kind of the way I interpret it. And but it's a song kind of about going through hardship after something tragic, I guess. And uh, just a beautiful written song, lyrically, musically, and vocally by Paul. I think does just an absolutely amazing job here. And yeah, like I said, favorite song of all time, favorite Beatles song, probably always will be. Love that I got to hear him sing this live. It was such a joy getting to hear him sing this song. And thank gosh, never. I don't know if I ever thought I'd ever see Paul McCartney, sing the song when I was 13, and I heard that song and just fell in love with it and just thought, oh, this is a great song of all time. And then, it'd be 20 some years later. Let's see, 13 to 25 years later, I finally get to see and hear the person who wrote that song that made such a impact in my life, and get to see him sing it live and go, oh my gosh, there he is singing this song that means so much to me. Anyway, so that was great getting to hear that, and still sounded great at age 75 when I saw Paul McCartney live, singing this stuff. Still got it, in my opinion. But yeah, uh, I know I probably went on a long time about that, but I really felt like I need to talk about that song. That such means so much to me, and I'm so glad I got to do this and talk about my favorite Beatles songs. Definitely something I think about a lot, and I listen to a lot, and just want to just glowingly say how much I love the Beatles and uh, how much their songs mean to me and my growing up, even and all that. Anyways, and hopefully it's the same to some of you as well. Feel some of those feelings. Let's see. Yesterday's easily in my top 10. All right, good. Day in Life is really good, but a little overrated. Yeah, I can hear you there. Like I said, Day in Life, I've seen it number one in a lot of the lists, and I don't blame it, but it's not my number one. I mean, it's number 10 because it still has some uniqueness to it and some really good stuff there. Uh, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's overrated, but I can kind of see what you're going at. You should check out Fifi the Flea by Holly's Graham. Kind of does what Paul does on Yesterday. Okay. Fifi the Flea? Okay. Hey, Adam. Okay. You'll be watching this. Okay. Good. I'm glad. Hopefully you like my top 10, Adam, and everybody that's watching. I got a couple people watching it during it, but hopefully get more watching afterwards. And I'd love to hear anybody's thoughts on these songs, what you think about the Beatles uh, and their songs and all that. Anyways, uh, always love those comments. So thank you for anybody watching this live. Thank you for anybody watching this afterwards. And this is such a great series to go through, and I'm glad I've gotten through it. Move on to some other stuff, but definitely one of my biggest projects I wanted to go through. And so glad I got to do it, and so glad and so appreciate anybody watching any of these videos of me talking about the Beatles songs because I really love doing it and putting the research into it and trying to put my feelings out there the best I can uh, anyways, and trying to be somewhat open on it. Anyway, so hopefully you enjoyed that. And again, just thank you for watching the video and liking it and sharing it with other people. Really appreciate that. And thank you to all the subscribers, of course. I really appreciate you guys. tuning in to anything I've done on my channel, and it's very grateful for everything. And so, thank you, and I hopefully everybody has a good weekend. Bye.